Hey everybody, welcome to another good e-reader comparison video. My name is Michael.
This is Peter.
Today we're going to check out the HP Slate 7 versus the Apple iPad mini. So, why are we doing this comparison video, may you ask? Well, it's Android versus iOS. The HP Slate 7 is the newest tablet that the company has ever produced, and the Apple iPad mini, fairly expensive and does a lot, but how do these stack up? Well, the big exciting factors behind the Slate 7 is that it has Beats audio, although it's internal sound only, which means you're only really going to get the most out of this with an accompanied Beats headphones.
Yeah, it's on the box. It kind of promotes it by having Beats audio, but unless you have a set of studio headphones, a Beats boombox, Beats Pill speakers, you're not going to get the true full experience of Beats. It's just going to be stereo sound. It's not the loudest. It's okay quality. It definitely isn't full-out Beats external like you would see on an HTC One, for example.
Correct. So this is a 7-inch screen. This is a 7.9-inch screen. The resolution is a bit different. The Mini has 1024 by 768, while the HP has 1024 by 600. They both have dual-core processors, although the HP is a bit faster. It's 1.6 versus a 1.0. You do have battery life is comparable, about 8 hours on the Mini, about 5 hours on the HP, and they both have cameras as well. You notice that you have two front-facing cameras. They're both a VGA, so you're not going to really have the tremendous quality. You do have 1.2 though, 0.3, fairly woeful. But you do have Google Play, so it's a fully Google certified device. So you have Google Maps, Chrome, all the luscious goodness. So you have hundreds of thousands of apps via Google Play, versus iOS. So you do have the App Store.
Honestly, Apple's always done it best with their App Store. I mean, it looks the best. It's laid out the best. Everything is readily available. It's not cluttered with useless, advertisement apps and just all this garbage. It's usable, well-functioning, good quality apps.
Yeah, I must say that Google did upgrade its app recently. So you do see more of a minimalist interface like on the top. So you do see you being able to scroll, kind of similar to like the interface here. It's very small on the top, and it's mainly designed for like scrolling.
Right.
But you notice here that you're scrolling like a carousel. It's almost the same thing here. You're not scrolling like singular apps. It's more of like a carousel.
Right.
The gulf between iOS and Android is it's narrowing. You used to find the best apps on iOS first. You still do, and then the crossover to Android for mainstream apps usually takes a while. Most apps tend to get a quicker turnaround to Android these days. So it's not like we saw years ago where iOS was the clear winner in terms of first-party apps. Android is quickly becoming relevant. So what are we going to do between these two apps? We can do a million things. We're going to focus more on the e-reading experience, primarily because we are good e-reader, and most of the times people are purchasing tablets to read, and not just read ebooks, but also newspapers, magazines, comic books, more graphic-heavy content that with a true e-reader, ebooks often are the best, but they don't do that great of a job when it comes to comic books and things like that. Right. So that's why people are quickly turning to tablets. What are we going to look at first?
We're going to open up Press Reader on both of these. This will open up Vancouver Sun, which is a newspaper on each of these devices. So we'll just go to the home screen here.
Well, you saw initially the iPad loaded up fairly quick.
Very quickly, and the screen size is it's just night and day difference. I mean, this isn't really a 7-inch screen, it's 7.9, so it's more like an 8, but look at the way the Apple uses the screen. It is edge to edge. It is the perfect amount of bezel, whereas look at this really chunky bezel here.
Yeah, you can't really see it on film, but this is actually a lot thicker too.
Right.
So you can see when we do put them on side by side that you can't really see it, but this screen is lower by like a good inch
Right.
than this is. And this is almost like pure bezel, whereas this has like no bezel.
Right, and that's a really good thing to have, because you want your tablet to be mostly screen. You don't need all this empty black space here.
Yeah, we've come a long way where components are smaller. You don't really need the craziness that you once needed. So I do like, obviously, I'm a huge advocate of effective use of screen real estate.
Right.
Being able to show more with less. And despite the fact that this is about 0.9 inches bigger, it does give you more.
Right.
Which makes, when you read newspapers, certainly with this, text is readable, text not so readable. This is the Press Reader app, and the big hyping factor behind this is its replica edition. So you're going to see the same type of newspaper experience as you would see in your print edition, complete with obituaries, classifieds, the Sunday funnies, the TV guide, and so on.
Right.
Hey, that's...
Yeah, I always try to do that.
Okay, so if you want to get more of an ebook reading experience, you can click on the article. As you can see, there's a little bit of a difference between the iOS and the Android version. So you can still like change the fonts and so on. So if this is not readable to you, you can increase the size of the text.
And actually on the Android version, you can scroll between articles, and you can just go from article to article to article. You can't do that on iOS. You only go the one article at a time. You'll have to actually press the right button in order to go to the next article.
Yeah, so you can't scroll. It's like an extra motion that you have to take.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously silly to think of that like, oh, you know, you got to put your hand all the way to the top of the screen, but it's little things like that, you know.
Yeah, so that's the difference, obviously, between like the Android and iOS version. Sometimes functionality is better on Android than it is on iOS, but as you can see between these two devices side by side, more text fits on any given page. I think that the images are crisper, which is funny because you saw this loaded up quickly. It has half the amount of RAM, and it has like, you know, it's 1.6 versus almost like a 1. So
it's surprising that, yeah, I mean, it's about numbers on paper, but it's also about how you use those numbers. And although Apple doesn't boast the highest of specs, at least on this particular model, it uses what it has very well.
Yes, I'm not huge on specs paper. That's why we do these reviews.
Exactly.
How fast does an app load up side by side? What's the page churn ratio like?
Exactly it.
How do audio and video come into play? You could read all the specs in the world, but it's real world performance that really gauges it. Next, we're going to look at Zinio. It's a magazine app, and they offer a myriad of subscription issues. They have the Zinio Z Pass, which recently launched, where it's like a la carte. You pay a low monthly fee. You can opt into a number of magazines per month. It's fairly solid.
We're going to read this magazine called Frame. Oh my gosh, look at the screen. It is absolutely wonderful on the iPad mini. It's just a perfect screen size. Look at that. Look how much this black bezel gets in the way.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. It's just, it's eating up all of your visual space.
Look at the black. This isn't like the bezel at the top.
No, that's
this
just
is
some
software.
dead space, yeah.
Yeah, so you can see that there's a crop of, because of this carousel here.
Yeah.
So they're not moving the page down.
Whereas Apple kind of brings the carousel up and overlaps the image itself.
Right. So what I did is I double clicked to get more of like a view like this. So when I do that, it kind of loses the top bezel.
But on its own.
Yeah, when you zoom into like normal level.
Massive difference though.
Yeah.
Massive difference.
So this is the default view. That's the default view.
Right.
Of course, you can tweak it. So when we zoom in, we'll let just the users kind of decide. We'll kind of get the same area here. You guys could see for yourself because there's a lot of different colors happening on the screen. All right.
Crazy.
So let's just look at a few more different colors. The good thing about this art magazine is that it really showcases a lot.
Right.
Kind of cool nouveau art installations. Okay. Of course, we're not going to subscribe.
Yeah.
Comic books. more so now than ever, people are reading comics on their tablets, mainly because you get the full color experience.
And you don't have to go out to the store to buy them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not the huge, like, I was a big comic fan when I was a kid,
right.
And as you get older, you kind of gravitate towards more like higher forms of literature. And I mean, I've always been like a big novel reader, and so I still, you know, admittedly read comics, but I buy way less than ever before. But I find it's way easier to buy comics on a tablet than it is to make the trek to the comic store.
Exactly.
And you know, I like to do things more in a digital format because often the digital editions are a little bit more affordable than tangible counterparts. But I could like buy comics in my boxer shorts, and if I were to go to the comic store in my boxer shorts, generally maybe I'd fit in with like the crowd there, but I would most likely be thrown out of the store.
That's a major thing for manga readers too, because a manga issue, for example, One Piece and Naruto, they have hundreds and hundreds of books in every series. So you'd have 4 or 5 bookshelves full of these mangas that are an inch or two thick each, whereas you can download the entire 100-issue series on your tablet or similar for virtually the same price, and it takes up none of the space.
Okay, as you see here, it's the same thing, sort of issue where you have the software-driven UI here that is not effectively taking good use of the screen. So you do have again, this black here is not the bezel. Yeah. That's software-driven.
Mm-hmm. That's just because the screen dimensions are just not compatible properly with the apps. It just seems to always be lacking a bit.
Yeah.
And you can see here, you can go panel by panel. Colors aren't too different, honestly.
No, I would probably say, even looking at this, not really a huge difference. And that's the thing with comic books. I find that they're not really indicative to the overall resolution. You might notice if it was like, you know, 600 by 480 or something like that. But, you know, when you look at a tablet side by side with comparable resolutions, comics are in such a way drawn with art and colored that they're not super high resolution. You did notice it a bit when we looked at the art in the magazine, but when it comes to comic books, they're fairly comparable. So I would probably say that these are pretty well even with the comic book experience, despite the fact that the iPad has a little bit bigger of a screen. But that aside, comic book experience relatively the same.
Right.
Next thing that we're going to do is look at the ebooks, because obviously more people, because they're buying a tablet to read newspapers, magazines, comics, etc.
Exactly.
That they're finding themselves reading books. Now, reading text on a white screen, never really the way that you really want to do it. It can kill your eyes after a while, which is why most purists end up switching to a dedicated e-reader that mainly just read novels, because this destroys your eyes after a while.
Right.
Pure e-ink device doesn't. But you can change the background color on here to, you know, sepia, black.
There's a couple choices here.
Yeah.
Massive screen use of space here. Look at that. You get almost this tiny little column, and you can see that the space between the edge and the text is actually almost the same as that, and it's just using more. I love it. It's using way more of the screen. So you can change the margins, line spacings, text all changes live. I mean, you can. I think the reading experience is a lot better on the iPad Mini, and it's a thinner device too, so it feels better in your hand.
Okay, so you saw the pure reading experience. We've given you a little bit of an overview of the App Store and content distribution systems. I think it's time to really put these head to head. Okay, these two G-Argonauts lock forces. The HP Slate 7 fires the first blow by playing a music track featuring Beats Audio with its dual stereo speakers. But unfortunately, it's internal audio only, which means that you need expensive Beats Audio headphones. The Apple iPad Mini counters with its own speakers. Despite the fact that Beats Audio is integrated, it fails to make an impression on the Apple iPad mini. He staggers. The large 7.9-inch screen makes magazines, newspapers, and comic books way better than an HP Slate 7. He splashes down on top of him. Our referee gets involved. He counts 1, 2, 3. Ding, 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 ding. The winner of the Goody Reader comparison of the HP Slate 7 versus the Apple iPad mini is the Apple iPad mini.